If you would have told me 1 year ago that this iPhone specifically would be still relevant to me, I'd probably not have believed you. Now, to be clear, this was not my full-time daily driver over the entire year. I do switch devices pretty often, especially when new models drop, but I have used this phone on and off enough over the past 12 months to confidently say that I absolutely could have this be my daily driver if needed to. Of course, this phone isn't perfect, and there are 3 big price points that I hope Apple fixes, but this is my 1 year later review. I'll talk about what has aged well, what has frustrated me, and whether or not it's still worth buying, especially since we have a lot of heavy rumors that the iPhone 17e is expected to be out in the next couple of weeks. After 12 months of daily use, the biggest takeaway for me on the iPhone 16e is how well the overall experience has really held up. Performance still feels fast and responsive, apps open quickly, multitasking is very smooth, scrolling is fluid, and even with newer versions of iOS and heavier apps compared to launch, it doesn't really feel outdated. It shouldn't, since it's really just running a somewhat new chip. I mean, the A18 chip's only a year old. That was in the iPhone 16 lineup, which makes sense. This is in the iPhone 16 lineup, so it's not some ancient tech stuffed inside of a budget phone. I shoot a lot of video, edit photos, manage emails, post on social media for the channel, and this phone handles everything easily. At no point over the past year have I felt like I was waiting for it to catch up with my workflow. That kind of consistency over time is what really separates a solid phone from one that feels disposable after just a few months. Battery life, of course, is not exactly what it was on day one, but it was a really big, important factor for this device, and it still is after a year of a bunch of charging cycles. I'm still really comfortable making it through a full day with having tons of battery left over to spare, especially on lighter days. I end the night with a decent amount left in the tank, sometimes even as much as 50%. On heavier days, we're looking at like 30%, but I mean, that's really, really heavy days where I wasn't able to even get to the charger at all. The more important thing here is that I'm not constantly thinking about if my phone's going to end up dead by the end of the day. I'm not hunting for chargers halfway through the afternoon. And so for a 1 year in device, that's a win. These phones, the battery degrades pretty quickly because we're using them a lot. Durability has also impressed me. I mean, this phone is incredibly durable, and I'm not someone who babies their phones, but I'm not reckless either. I do not use a case all the time. In fact, this phone is probably the one I use the case on the most. Get to that in a minute, but it's always going to come up with some micro scratches, maybe on the display here and there. This isn't an iPhone 17 lineup phone, so it doesn't have Ceramic Shield 2. And that earlier type of display that we've had for years up until recently was prone to micro scratches. I even dropped it once. It left a small nick on here somewhere, but honestly, I don't even remember when that happened. It was definitely early on. It is in great shape. This phone has held up extremely well. Now, let's get into some of my more long-term frustrations, which honestly, if you've seen any of my earlier videos on this phone, it's really much of the same. Not a lot's changed. The first one is MagSafe, or more accurately, the lack of native MagSafe. Yes, you can absolutely couple it with a case here that has magnets. This one's from Taurus, not sponsored. I bought it on Amazon myself. I have used it with this phone at night. That is when I wirelessly charge the most. And you can wirelessly charge without MagSafe, obviously, but I use a MagSafe charging dock on my nightstand. And it's nice to have all your phones directly integrated with MagSafe. And so it's not native, but the alignment feels fine. It works. You know, you're going to get the rest of the other accessories to work if you need it to, but it's just not the same as having that first party integration. It's not a deal breaker, clearly, since I've used it for a year on and off, but every time I pick up another iPhone with native MagSafe, I'm reminded that I really wish this one had it built in. I also mentioned that I prefer to go caseless, so I've either had to throw the case on at night during, when I want to charge it on my bedside charging stand, which is what I do. I keep the case on. When I get up in the morning, I take it off, and I go about my day, and then when I get home, I put it back on, and I charge it on that charger. It's annoying, but I can get through. The other major limitation is the single camera setup. For everyday use, honestly, it's been fine because I mostly use the main camera. The colors look great. Its dynamic range is very solid. Video quality is obviously really strong. It is the same 48 megapixel sensor that we've had in the last few generations of phones. So standard everyday point and shoot photos, not going to complain there. Where it becomes frustrating is when I'm out and I need something like a zoom lens, or for some of you guys, you might need the ultra wide lens, and you can't obviously digital crop out, and you can digitally crop in. And while Apple's processing is pretty good for that, it's not quite the same. Concerts, sporting events, things I go to a lot, trying to capture something from further away, it's just not as good or really possible. with this device. So you need proper optical zoom. And if you're somebody who does need that, this phone's probably not the right one for you. Outside of those two issues, everything else to me has aged pretty well. The display is still bright and sharp. You're looking at like an iPhone 14 style display, and just design of the phone overall. Outdoor visibility has been fine. The speakers are loud and clear. Haptics still feel as premium as ever. Face ID remains fast and reliable. All of the core fundamentals that Apple gives you on a good iPhone experience is still here and very strong. Now, the timing of this review is interesting because the rumored iPhone 17e is honestly expected to happen here in the next couple of weeks. If reports are accurate, sounds like Apple might be refining this exact formula of success and making it better, because MagSafe is reportedly on the table, which would immediately fix one of my biggest pain points. Having native MagSafe support would make this device instantly feel more integrated into the ecosystem and eliminate the need for me to have this case on and kind of go through the workarounds. On top of that, the 17e is also expected to feature the new A19 chip. And while this phone to me is still perfectly fast, it definitely would bring better efficiency, improved thermal performance, and more headroom for those future iOS updates, which we are going to get. And if you want to keep your phone for long periods of time, it's going to help with the battery life. It's going to keep you in, the future-proof realm of those updates for at least another year or so. And so if that stuff matters to you, then that's a pretty big upgrade. We're also seeing rumors of Apple including the updated C1X and the N1 wireless chip. Now, that may not sound flashy, but improvements to cellular connectivity, Wi-Fi stability, and overall wireless efficiency can have meaningful impact in everyday use. Think about your battery, or if you're in an area where you have inconsistent signal or rely heavily on data performance, those upgrades could end up being more noticeable than a small bump in processing power, in my opinion. I've been impressed with the C1 on this phone. There were talks about the C1, that's why it was on the 16e to launch and not some of the more premium phones, because what if that chip was great with efficiency for your battery, but it wasn't great for cellular connectivity, which is really important for people. It ended up being just fine. So improving that is always great. These are some good changes, and it pretty much fixes a lot, especially with MagSafe being introduced. But no secondary camera is still going to be an issue for me, and it might be for you. And the $599 price tag has still bothered me to this day, and it looks like we're still going to get that starting price tag of $599. Now, a lot of carriers offer deals out there, especially with budget phones. They definitely want to include them in like a buy one, get one, or if you open up a new line, you get this phone for free. Definitely worth it if you can do that. I just think if you're buying it outright, $599 is a little hefty, especially if you can find a 16 Pro or a used 17 for that matter, or some sort of older device that bumps up a couple of models. Then you're getting an extra camera, a better display, etc. So then it starts to not really be worth it. But if you're looking for a new phone, after 1 year, I would still recommend the 16e, especially if you're just you're probably going to get it on sale and find a really good deal for it. So I highly recommend it. If you don't need zoom photography, aka that telephoto lens, if you don't need native MagSafe functionality, it's still a very capable device. I'd maybe wait and see if the 17e does natively bring in MagSafe and all these other improvements that I talked about before you pull the trigger on something like this at a discounted rate. But either way, the 16e did not disappoint me over the last year. The 17e is probably going to be much of the same, but improvements that are highly welcome in my opinion. So it would be great to hear from you in the comments down below. If you've used this phone for the last year, what are your thoughts? If you're thinking about buying this phone or maybe waiting for the 17e, what type of iPhone user are you? Are you just somebody that, needs a good camera? One camera is good enough. You're pointing and shooting. You just want a phone that works reliably. You don't need a lot of flashy features. I feel like that's probably a lot of you out there that are looking at this phone. Let me know in the comments down below if you're actually going to pull the trigger. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.